I'm John Rubbo, owner of Yonkers Brewing Company, and we are here in Yonkers, New York, Westchester County, right here in the Yonkers Brewing Company, in between two tanks. I'm here with my good friend Keith Olson. He is the PBA president here in the city of Yonkers for the Yonkers Police Department and president of the APA in Westchester County. Thanks for joining me, Keith.
Thanks for having me, John.
Keith is a lifelong resident of the city of Yonkers. We're going to talk to Keith about his love for beer, his time on the police department, and everything in between. So, Keith, you have been a Yonkers police officer for within 5 decades.
That's right.
I know you like to say 5 decades.
Yeah, 5 decades. Started in the 80s.
Started in the 80s. So in that time, you've seen a lot of different parts of the department. You've seen the department evolve pretty significantly. So what is your favorite story that you could tell? One of the ones you could tell of your time as a Yonkers police officer.
Yeah, so there's a difference between my favorite stories and the stories that I can tell. And you know, over 34 plus years, I mean, you know, they say police officers have a front row to the greatest show on earth, and that couldn't be more true. So there's just been some really, really incredible moments. But one of the things I think of, and I just recently told the story at a friend's retirement party, a friend from the FBI. But when I was in the gang unit, we did a takedown of some of the worst gang members in the city. The city at the time had dozens and dozens of shootings up and down the Riverdale Avenue, Jackson Street area. So we did a really great investigation the last over a year with the FBI, and we did a takedown and took down about 50 gang members. And I just happened to bump into one of the bodega owners from right over here in the 47 Riverdale area. And he gave me a big hug, and he had tears in his eyes. He was explaining to me that after the takedown, you know, how much of a difference that made and how much safer he felt and his family felt. And it was just a great reminder of the importance of what we do and how much we can change people's lives.
So, and how many years were you in the gang unit?
For over 10 years.
So in those 10 years, how many people would you say you were able to take off the street to make the city safer?
Yeah, I mean, in my over 20 years on the street, you know, even before that, leading up to the gang unit, I know I'd made personally over 2,000 arrests. The time in the gang unit, you know, it was definitely in the hundreds, and then more importantly, we did a lot of federal investigations. So we literally took, you know, hundreds of people, and really some of the most violent people the city had to offer. And we're able to work with the FBI and other federal agencies and put them behind bars. And, you know, the city is definitely a safer place as a result.
Well, and you said it. Since the 80s, the city is certainly in a much safer city. We talk about how the city of Yonkers is the safest city of its size all across the nation. What would you associate with its safety and you know, the policing that has made it so safe?
Yeah, and you know, we're very proud of that fact. You know, and it really is. You know, when you compare us to even our neighbors here, like, you know, compared to Mount Vernon, no knock to Mount Vernon, how much safer we are, and then the other big cities in New York, there is absolutely no comparison. And I think a lot has to do with our precision policing model, which, you know, I think we helped adapt to when we were in the gang unit, not, you know, just you know, carpet bombing and arresting anybody and everybody. Like, we really, you know, identified the worst offenders in Yonkers, and we tend to target them and do our best to take them off the streets just to make Yonkers a safer place. So that's a huge part of it. And then the other thing we're proud of is that along the way, we've also managed to keep and build a great relationship with the community. You know, we keep criminal complaints against police officers at a very, very low. Our uses of force are super low. Just in all metrics that a police department can be measured, you know, Yonkers is doing a really good job.
Yonkers is a model police department and should be a model for, I think, the nation.
Yeah, I agree. And we've talked about this before, John. I think that, you know, when I talk to our elected officials, especially at the state level and you know, larger levels, I think people should come to Yonkers and really study what we're doing, how we're doing it, and why we're doing it, and take our model and bring it elsewhere, because, I mean, it's undeniably a really, really good way of doing things.
Well, thank you for your service.
Thanks, John.
All right, so now beer. Beer is very important. We know you are a huge craft beer fan.
I am.
You've been to breweries all up and down the East Coast. You've traveled the Northeast. You've been to Florida and everything in between. So what is your favorite brewery of all time, and what makes it so special?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate, you know, whenever and wherever I travel, you know, I always tell my wife, you know, whatever it is, if we're going to Miami, we're going to the beach, or we were just recently going up to Maine, you know, and I tell her that's where we're going, but of course she knows that, you know, we're going to hit some of the local breweries while we're there. So, you know, and you know, John, I love Yonkers Brewing. This is one of my favorite places to come. I'm here all the time, and you know, I live right around the corner. So this is, you know, one of my favorites. But you know, the whole Northeast and the New England corridor has some really, really great breweries. I just hit a bunch in Maine. I was just up in Boston the other day, and I went to Trillium, which was really fantastic. But I think my favorite is Treehouse Brewing, which, you know, they now have at least 4 locations, and they just make some of the best IPAs, the best beers that I've ever had.
Yeah, they have a unique model, right? I think you were saying, we were talking earlier about how you can't find that beer anywhere.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by the model, and it's clearly working because they keep building new locations. They just recently purchased a golf course, and then they have like a wedding type venue. So they've taken over this whole, which is a really unique thing for a craft brewery. So they're clearly doing well, but their model is that they don't distribute. Even in the Boston area, you won't find Treehouse on tap in your local bar. You won't find it in a can in the store. It is either you go to Treehouse and buy it, or you don't get it at all. And I find it very unique, but it's clearly working for them.
So, one of your favorite styles, as we know, is the hazy IPA. It's very popular now, and when people go into a bar, they're looking for that, or going into a store, they're looking for that fun, juicy, hazy IPA. What is your favorite hazy IPA?
Yeah, that's definitely my favorite type of beer. I love the hazy IPAs. Like we're drinking the Rays right now, and there's just so many of them, and you find your taste buds adapt too. Like as you know, different types of hops are combined, you know, you start to change a little bit. But still, one of my favorites is, and it's been around for quite a while, is Treehouse's Julius. It's just you know, as soon as you pour it, you can see the color in it is fantastic, and it's just a really, really great single IPA. I think it's like a 7.1%. So it's a little on the stronger end for a single IPA, but it's really good.
And I think beers over the last decade have come so far. Like when I first came into the industry, you saw it had to be a clear beer. It had to be clear. People wanted bitterness. They were looking, well, how bitter is that beer? I want a bitter beer. I want it to punch me. And now we've gone to something more smooth, you know, full of oats, that has that juicy flavor that you can't see through.
Right.
And it's, you know, something that is incredibly popular. It's just amazing, like just from year to year, how the industry changes.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's constantly adapting, and different styles kind of come in and out. Like, you know, like I still love the hazy IPAs, but I know some in the industry are starting to get away from that and go back to like a West Coast IPA, like a hoppier. They use the term dank, which the only time I've ever used the word dank is in talking about West Coast IPAs. But yeah, it's really interesting how the whole thing adapts, and you know, it's just you know, kind of fun to be a part of.
So Westchester County has so many great restaurants. So what is your favorite restaurant, and what dish do they serve that just really stands out for you?
So again, I'm here all the time, John. So this is absolutely one of my favorites. You know, and I'm not just saying that because I'm sitting here, and you know that I'm here more than any other restaurant, really. But and when I look for a restaurant, it's not just the food. Like obviously, the food is super important, but you know, I like the atmosphere and just the feel and the vibe to a whole place. And I absolutely love Zuppa right up the street. I always have since the day they opened. It's always been one of my favorite places. And to this day, you know, when I'm looking to go out and just have a great meal, or just even go to the bar, sit at the bar with my friends, or whatever it is, grab a quick lunch, Zuppa's always at the top of the list.
Right. Is there any like moment at Zuppa that you had that like really just sticks out?
Yeah, there's several, and we have our PBA Christmas party there every year. So there's actually some really great moments that I probably couldn't tell in this podcast. I'm laughing as I'm thinking about them, but I had my son's confirmation there, which was probably over 20 years ago. And one of my favorite pictures, and the picture still hangs on my wall in my home now, is my son, my two sons, my two nephews, my nephew AJ, who happens to be right around here at this moment, and my nephew Nick and my two sons Tyler and Sean. It was such a great moment. They were just goofing around, and it just happened to capture like a really great moment. And we love the picture so much that it's hung up on my wall forever. And then just a couple years ago, we replicated it, you know, them at, you know, 30 years old and 28 years old. And Nick, I guess, is like 24, 25. So we had them replicate the picture, and that's one of my favorite moments of Zuppa.
That's awesome. Yeah, Zuppa is one of those restaurants, you know, for my wife and I too. It's a close restaurant. It's close to home. That's where we go for our date nights. We always get have a great experience, great meal, great drink, and that's where I proposed to her. That's where we have our anniversary dinners. It's
Right.
you know, it's just always a great restaurant, a great downtown restaurant.
Yeah, same here. And I don't think I have a favorite dish. Like every time I go there, I try and try something different. And you know, maybe like 3 times in a row I'll have a favorite dish, and then I'll try something else, and 3 times in a row that'll be my next favorite dish. And it's, you know, again, it's constantly adapting.
So I'll put you on the spot. We've tried to make a lot of changes since Chef Mike joined. What's your favorite dish here now?
Wow. It's funny because usually like the waiters here will know what I like. So when I came in the other day, I think I ordered a couple things that I don't normally order. So again, you know, the menu has changed here, and it's great. But I still like, and it's one of the absolute, I think the original is like the buffalo chicken wrap. It's just like you know, for me, like a go-to thing. But you know, I love the octopus. I like the coconut shrimp. I had a watermelon salad the other day.
Nice.
All good. All good.
Thank you. Well, Keith, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure to talk to you about, you know, your decades of experience on the Yonkers Police Department.
5 decades, John.
5 decades on the Yonkers.
5 decades.
And
it's only 34 plus years, but it's 80s, 90s, and then whatever those other decades are called.
Whatever the other decades.
Yeah.
Well, you are the most senior person on the Yonkers Police Department. Is that right?
I am, and you know, John, I always point this out. So I have the most seniority. Actually, the next closest person I think has 5 years, but I am not the oldest person on the job.
Okay.
So I would like to point that out to everybody.
So you're not the oldest,
close.
but you have the most seniority.
Correct.
I
I got hired at 20 years old, so I had a nice early start.
Well, thank you for your service. Thanks for tuning in. This is John Rubbo, Yonkers Brewing Company, Keith Olson, Between Two Tanks. Thanks for joining us, Keith.
Cheers, John.